opportunity to recap where we left off and what actions are anticipated this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to give a recap. So at the regular meeting of September 8th, the council conducted the public hearing and received testimony and comments on the proposed conditional use permit for CVS. The council voted to recess the meeting to this date, and that would give the developer and his team time to address the concerns that were raised regarding the exterior, the drawings, the elevations of the building. And so tonight, before you, you're able to debate and discuss the application and ultimately vote on the 4 criteria, the findings of facts that you have to find in order to issue the conditional use permit. And so at this point, did you all want to review the renderings with the council? We got a revised set of renderings late this afternoon. I emailed them to the council. Marshall, how do you want to proceed?
If you'd like to add Danielle as a presenter, she's got a rendering, and is Terry on the phone? She'll probably be able to speak to them well.
There we go. Okay.
And we can speak to the site plan as well, but there's the updated rendering of the building. Terry, are you on the call?
Danielle, are you on?
I believe Terry's on.
Terry, are you on? I'm sorry. Well, she may or may not be. So what we've attempted to do here is address some of the concerns about that the council had about the appearance of the building itself. We've been back and forth with CVS's interior design team. And when I say interior, I mean their in-house design team, in an effort to make certain that they're happy from the perspective of maintaining what they perceive to be their corporate identity, but at the same time making the city of Edenton and all our neighbors happy about the product that we're putting forth from an aesthetic perspective. And this, what you see in front of you right now, does not have to be the be-all, end-all. We are happy to continue down this road with the city to make certain that everything we put in front of you is within our power, everything that we can do within our power to make this building aesthetically attractive. We intend.
Marshall, what we're seeing, is that the front that's facing Broad Street?
Yes.
So, hang on one second. Councilman Hyde just arrived, and so you recall at the September 8th meeting, he disclosed a conflict, and you all voted to recuse him from deliberating and participating. And I think you had taken a seat away from the dais, so you probably need to do that again.
I don't know if Mr. Ellis could chime in. I don't know if I need to request the same motion be made that we did last time. Mr. Ellis?
No, I think the council's action at the meeting that we recessed till tonight was adequate to take care of.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll step aside. Thank you.
Could I just, so I've spent some time with these plans, and Jimmy, that's looking from the chicken kitchen. That's
facing the chicken.
It's facing the chicken kitchen parking lot, and so what's facing the 2 primary entrances are things that look like the back of a building. And that's what I'd like to see remedied, you know, more than anything. So if you look at the Virginia Road and the North Broad Street sides, they look like the back of a, you know, of a shopping center.
So that side is parallel to Broad Street.
Yeah, that, it goes like that, you know, Broad Street's here and this is over here. So the,
Have you got a rendering of the front of the building?
So this is the front of the building. Terry, are you on the call?
this is what, this is
So,
the Broad Street side.
hey, Danielle, can you switch to the elevations so that you can see that?
Chicken kitchen.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and chicken kitchen parking lot. You drive in, so it's totally.
Hello? Can you hear me?
There
You
you
can
are.
now, Terry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was having a problem with my headset.
Terry, I'd love for you to jump in and kind of present the changes that were made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, after the comments that came back from us, from the first set, we revised the elevation to more of a monochromatic, brick facade that will wrap around all 4 elevations now. We've toned down the sign band so that it kind of complements the red brick facade. We've also gotten rid of all the white sign bandage. We are able to light the CVS on the front facade without having it be interior lit. So now we'll have the lighting that will shine down on the CVS just to soften that up as well. We've added some traditional historical elements with the canopies, with the gooseneck lighting. The white ephes now at the bump out has been changed to a soft beige color that will face that intersection of Virginia Road and the highway there. We've also addressed the issue of glazing, wanted to add some more of that and adjust the sill heights on Broad Street there. But again, the landscape has been done beautifully, and there's a lot of trees that are along Virginia and Broad Street. But again, we did address the glazing, and we did address lowering the sill height, increasing the window heights, adding some depth to it. Added some pilasters, and did add that vertical articulation at the front elevation that faces the parking lot as well.
Is it any taller than it was?
Considerably taller. Terry, can you please tell them exactly how much taller it is?
So we increased the parapet to hide the RTUs, and now we've increased it up to, 26 feet, I believe.
From, what was it?
We can address that as well. We can go higher if you would like.
Yes,
If
sounds
you want
great.
more of a presence of that tower at the front elevation of the front door.
And is there any way, okay, so I think what we were all sort of, just really didn't see a rendering that, you know, had these sides placed by the streets. Is there any way to do something, if you're gonna raise the height, to do the 2 principal places that people will look at this thing will be on Broad Street and on Virginia Road. And so you know, I know the front's over by the, sort of on the side, and that's fine. Can we do something else so that it doesn't just look like the side of a building? I mean, I was in a beach community this weekend. Every building they're building has all kinds of, you know, more articulation, broken up spaces. I'm not really sure what some of those things are on the side of the building, but, you know, hide some of that and then put something that looks like I guess for want of a better word, a tower, some type of area that goes up so it breaks up the building so it's not so vertical.
I wish we could see the landscaping design too.
Yeah.
In addition to this, I think that would make me feel a little bit better in your comments.
Danielle, do you have that sheet that you can share? We do have that. So all of those circles are trees. The larger circles are trees. And then the smaller circles in between are all shrubs.
Or what?
Shrubs. Yeah, so this is, it's a substantial amount of trees for the streetscape along both Virginia Road and Broad Street, which will help to soften the facade that you see.
It
that was-
also softens the brick,
Yes,
massive brick wall.
absolutely.
But if she can go up more and make it,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, trees are great, but they don't, you know, they're not there's no need to try to disguise, the building needs to look good, and then the trees can fit in with it. So-
Terry, which one of those renderings faces Broad Street and which one faces NC 32?
So Broad Street is the second one from the top,
Okay.
That's
And-
right.
and then the third one is what faces Virginia Road.
Virginia, okay.
And as you can see on the landscaping plan, there are several trees that will be along both frontages.
Well, the actual front of the building will be facing the chicken kitchen, is that correct?
That is correct, and that's based off of requirements from the town that you must have parking behind the store.
That's not negotiable, right?
No, that's
Yeah.
not.
That's also in the architectural standards to have the building oriented toward the street and the parking to the side or rear, which they've done.
And I think that's fine, I mean, I think that's fine, as long as you dress up the, you know, the two sides we see, I think, you know.
That fourth rendering, that's the Baton Road side, the fourth rendering, okay.
Correct.
There's just so much blank in those two, you know, I mean, if we could get a, and I'm talking to the architect now, if we could get for want of a better word, some type of, something that breaks that up, a tower and then some windows or some, you know, fake doors or what, just all kinds of ways people are doing this now.
Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, I mean, basically, she said she could.
Needed.
We could add some pilasters, some columns, so that would create some horizontal articulation and bring it up to match some of the other edging and pilasters that you would see on Broad Street. Just to kind of dress up that Baton Road elevation. We could also add some extra glazing and fenestration, maybe some more brick detail on North Broad Street there that would kind of break up, again, that monochromatic red wall. But again, that landscaping has been really nicely done just to soften that all up. But we can explore that and add some more glazing elements there for you, if that's what you would like to see.
That would be great, and then some, you know,
Okay.
yeah, another type of, something that goes above, so the building just doesn't read as one big vertical box.
Okay.
I like okays.
Like what?
I like okays.
I like the improvement.
Yeah, it's better, there's no
Yeah.
question about that.
Okay, does council have any other questions or comments about, to Terry or to anyone who's?
I got one more, can both signs be externally lit?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we just still dealing with design, or we dealing with the other four in the fourth?
We're gonna get to those.
Okay.
And I guess, maybe this question's for Hood. Hood, how do we reserve the right to approve the design if we approve the project tonight? Is he muted?
I guess that's the question
I
for
don't
Marshall.
think.
Hey, Hood, are you there?
I'm I'm here.
That's it. Can we approve it subject to, us being satisfied with the changes she's gonna make about, raising the height, adding articulation and, things like that? Is there some way we can do that subject to that? Just sort of like we're doing, I think there's a,
But I think it's, again, you can add that as one of your conditions to the approval. And again, the more specific you can make it, the better, because
Okay.
that at least gives them some guidance on what they need to work on.
okay.
Okay, as we know, this is having to do with the conditional use permit for HR Acquisitions LLC to construct retail store and pharmacy with the drive-through at 801 North Broad Street. And now we have to vote on the 4 criteria for the proposed development must meet. Will it endanger public health or safety? I need a motion and a second.
So,
And when do we add our conditions? I guess that's, well,
it's at the end?
at the end?
At the end, Elizabeth will do that.
You'll vote on your 4 conditions, and then when you vote on issuing the permit, you'll vote to include conditions
Okay.
as listed in the staff report and in the user.
And those conditions need to be as specific as possible.
Any additional ones? We've got the ones that were suggested by staff. You can probably just reference those.
Okay, so I need a
I
vote.
move we will not endanger public health and safety. Mayor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion further on that? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Will not injure the value of adjoining or budding property.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
As far as discussion is concerned, I think it will improve the area.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did we get a motion?
You got a motion and a
Yes.
second, yeah.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, will be in harmony with the area in which it is located.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any, discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, and all other plans officially adopted by the town council.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we have to vote on the issuance of the conditional use permit. Do we do that, Elizabeth, do?
Do you want to review
Sure.
the conditions that were included in the staff report?
And Anne Marie, I think we also have an additional one tonight about the road. I'll turn it over to you when I
You turn over the hood.
Hood, okay?
Is that the Hughes Street?
So originally, in your staff report, there were 7 suggested conditions. I think Mr. Ellis will have an additional one about the road closure and abandonment, and then any that you all would add regarding the architecture. So the first condition would be that sidewalk or pedestrian access shall be installed along the northern western boundary of the CVS site. I would just say that we would strike that. That was based on the closure of Baton Road, and we're going to have continued pedestrian access there on Baton Road to connect with the sidewalk system. So that's -1. The final landscape plan will be reviewed and approved by the Town of Edenton Tree Committee. Prior to the filing of a final plat, the developer shall have said plat reviewed and signed by the land use administrator according to UDO requirements. 3, all necessary traffic improvements, utility installations and connections, and drainage stormwater detention improvements shall be installed by and all associated and required fees borne by the developer. Number 4, stormwater and drainage shall meet NCDOT and NCDEQ regulations. Number 5, all proper NCDOT permits are required for access to Virginia Road and North Broad Street. And number 6, all details or improvements, including but not limited to facade, signage, infrastructure, sidewalks, landscaping, and street lighting, shall be installed and constructed according to the UDO requirements. So, Mr. Ellis.
Okay, I think, Elizabeth, what we talked about doing was, since we've got to advertise to close that paper alley we talked about last time. We've got to advertise to close something that was originally called Hughes Street that's never been put in, that shows up on some county tax maps. And we won't, by the time we advertise those, it won't be ready for you to vote on until after your October 26th meeting. So what I want to do is insert a condition of the CUP tonight is that the council does in fact close the paper alley and does in fact close the portion of Hughes Street that are shown on the CVS site plan, the property they're going to be acquiring. And also, one other one is Adam Road's not being closed, but there is going to be a portion of it that's relocated by virtue of this site plan to accommodate it. In other words, to accommodate the council's desire not to close Baton Road, they needed to relocate the end of it as it comes into Virginia Road. And that also requires council's approval to exchange the old Baton Road right-of-way for the new Baton Road right-of-way. In other words, they'll give us a deed for the relocated portion, and we'll give them a deed for the old portion. And the statutes permit us to do that when it's really a like-kind exchange. So that won't be ready for you to vote on until October 26th. So we want to make that a condition of the CUP as well, that, again, that action officially does happen so that this site plan can be built.
Okay, thank you, Hood, and Elizabeth, thank you both. And so at this time, I'll entertain a motion for conditional use permit.
I think I need to add one more condition.
Okay.
Design condition.
I'll add the condition that the developer the developer offer a design that is less vertical, has more articulation and height on Broad Street, on the Broad Street side and the Virginia Road side, allows or creates architectural detailing to break up large blank walls of brick, and creates more fenestration and makes all signs externally lighted, which I think she said they were anyway. And Elizabeth, can you think of anything else the staff would want to put in there so that it gives you some?
Did I hear columns mentioned, Sambo?
I think they were talking about the like the pilasters that would go, that are in brick, that are sort of, give some definition. I guess they're sort of brick columns, and put those, because they nicely break up. Add more window, or more fake windows, fake doors. Whatever the staff feels we need to make this building look like it belongs in Edenton. And I'm very appreciative of the architect for doing this. And you win a design contest, you do it really well. So.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So we need to have a motion and a second to issue the permit with the conditions noted in Elizabeth's report that Hood gave us and that Sambo gave us.
Mayor, I have another issue to raise, or another condition perhaps. Is that appropriate time to do that now?
This is the time.
Okay. We know we've had some problems in North Eden, and I don't know if this is a condition or not, with cut-through traffic from Oakland Street coming over to Broad, and has increased the crime rate there and unwanted people in the neighborhood. The fear among neighbors in North Eden is that CBS will create more cut-through traffic coming over from Oakham. I'd like to ask staff or someone to get with an engineer and look at the potential for closing some of the entrances off of Oakham into North Edenton as a way of preventing cut-through traffic in the neighborhood. I think it will be increased with this plan. It's already a problem without this plan, and I'd like to at least have a study to look at it and see how we might address that issue.
Why would you want to close
Why would you, I mean,
the
you know,
entrances?
I mean, what
purpose
If
is
you
this?
look
would
at
you close
Oakham,
off coming from Oakham Street
if
possibly?
you look at Oakham, you've got several places where a street comes and goes out and feeds. And you just have a lot of people coming in off Oakham and driving through, and the majority of the shootings there have been cross traffic cutting through there. And the neighborhood feels that is vulnerable to this, and they've asked that we look at the possibility of cutting off some of the streets, or at least reducing the amount of traffic that just flows through the neighborhood with no intention of coming into there, just getting over to Broad Street.
So what you want to do is isolate the neighborhood?
Pardon?
You want to isolate the neighborhood?
A little bit.
That don't have anything to do with the project.
Yeah, so, one thing I mean, when I hadn't really heard about that the other night. I do think that we really need to look at North Edenton as a place that needs revitalization.
Yes.
And I think that ought to be really a whole separate project, where we really are able to put, you know, and get, I'm not so sure engineers, my want for that would be to get a really great, some of the best minds in town planning to say, you know, here's this neighborhood with these sort of unusual road patterns. What can we do to make this a better place for the residents to live, given those factors? And I think that's something that, you know, I would certainly support doing as a whole standalone project. That you know, as part of that project, would look at things like road closures and stuff. But I think it's so far away from the CVS that
Well, it's right across the street from CVS. You have Park
and
Ave,
parts of it.
North Edenton
yeah.
starts at Park, and then you've got Virginia, and you've got CVS here, and you've got direct traffic coming in.
Well, I agree with Councilman Bond in that has nothing to do with this project.
I disagree with it, Mayor. I think it has a lot to do with it, and that it will increase the traffic cutting through there, and that has increased the insecurity of the neighbors. I think, I agree that we need a great plan, but I think this CVS will not help that neighborhood in terms of its problems dealing with unwanted traffic.
Well, and the other thing that's getting ready to happen there is the school. I mean, I think that it could also be part of that feasibility study, you know, in providing places for moderate income people to live also that, you know, that are, you know, we need some housing that isn't so expensive in Edenton. And I think that's you know, one of the places that housing stock isn't really expensive right now. And just the question is how to make sure the neighborhoods are safe.
Well, can we get some commitment to that process?
Yeah, you get from me about trying to do all of that. I think that, and I really think the time to do that is when we do the high school, all the stuff that's gonna come with the high school. But I'm totally on board with North Edenton with you, because I think it needs attention, and I would be willing to, you know, sit down and let's start talking about it next meeting. I mean, I think that's a really good thing for us to do.
So you're gonna block off all the entrances
Oh, no, I'm not saying that.
to North Eden? You can just isolate the community and give them one exit out?
No, not me.
I think there's
I would
probably
never
6
do
to 8
that.
entrances off there, so I think that the problem is not a main street light. It's where you have a street and all of a sudden it goes in this direction like this. You've got a little V here, and you've got several of those. And it's just sort of all along there with vacant buildings and vacant sheds in that area.
I just think it
I don't
needs,
see how you
I see it as a separate
I don't see
area,
how
a
you-
separate area we need to look at some point in time.
And, you know, and I'm not saying, I would,
But it needs attention.
closing
It needs
roads,
attention.
closing roads is a very radical thing. I think that people say that, but I think
Well,
a plan.
what about
would
saying
help.
that-
Choose which ones you're gonna close off.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we have to play, I think we need to look at that as one possibility. That's what
Yeah.
the neighbors have asked, and that's why I'm responding to it. That was their response to CVS. What's it gonna do to our neighborhood? We think we'll get more cut-through traffic. And that was the problem beforehand, so I'm saying, if the neighbors in that, area are concerned, let's respond to that at this point, and at least look at the issue and see if it might not be a solution.
Yeah, I just don't see how, I mean, I'm all for looking at that neighborhood. I don't know how we can connect it to this as much. I mean, I'm I'm not necessarily for cutting off streets, but I'm for trying to figure out how to get more investment into that neighborhood. You know, to get some of the bad stuff that's going on stopped. So,
I'm out.
No, Elizabeth and I were just whispering, we have reconnected with a planner, actually the planner who did the neighborhood redevelopment zone projects for us, the planner who did the siting of the police station, Dale Holland, and he's going to be with you. We've invited him to come to a meeting in October for another issue, and so we can talk to Dale about this concern and see if that's something that he can take a look at.
yeah, I think that's
from a
great.
planning
He'd be great to work
standpoint.
with. He's
Yeah.
well qualified.
But that's what I'm asking for.
Because, you know, like we was talking about before, the redevelopment zones, that's been good policy and it's brought good results. And it's taken a long time, but finally,
We're seeing.
you know, we're seeing it. And it's one of the most positive things that I've seen.
I'd love to see him get involved in North Edenton.
Yeah, almost 25 years of being up here.
Okay, can we get back to the vote on the issuance of the conditional use permit?
Mayor, so moved. We need,
Okay,
with conditions.
got a motion, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have the conditional use permit with the conditions. Quite a few conditions of that. Okay,
Necessary.
Yeah.
okay.
Thank y'all for going along with that. I appreciate the vote.
Okay, now we have to vote on it to adopt the plan consistency statement for planning director staff report.
Yes, sir, and that is the long, detailed language at the end of my staff report that basically states that was required by North Carolina general statute. They have since eased up some of their requirements with that language not requiring it be quite as specific. So if you all would just entertain a motion to adopt it as stated in the staff report, then that should suffice for
Okay.
that.
I move we adopt that as stated in staff.
Okay.
Sir.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You know, Elizabeth, thank you for all your hard work.
Yes, you certainly have, absolutely. And thank Marshall and his development team for their hard work as well. And Elizabeth, you have done an outstanding job on that. So now we will entertain a motion.
I made.
We got a motion, I need a second.
Okay, second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And now I'll ask if you will to, let's rearrange item C. And this ordinance requires motion and a second to adopt. Anne Marie, help me out here.
Okay, Mayor, I think we talked about putting the ordinance ordering the abatement of the public nuisance aside so that we could temporarily, so that the council could hear from the town attorney regarding the revised resolution of intent to close the portion of the alleyway and the paper street and call for the public hearing. Hood's going to just briefly review that with you. That was, he talked about it, that's the resolution that will set the public hearing, and then he's also going to, well, he already talked about the property exchange, and that will,
Hearing would be October 26th.
the hearing for the road closure, the
Paper.
abandonment of the alleyway and paper street, yes. would be October 26th.
So do we take any action at all on that now?
We're asking that you adopt the resolution that Hood revised, and I
Okay.
sent to you this afternoon.
Okay.
And Hood, do you have any other comments for them? Are we good?
No, again, these are just, the statute requires us to adopt a resolution of intent, publish it 4 times in the newspaper before you can take action on it. And again, these are closing streets and alleys that do not exist. They exist on paper only. But it's just to tidy up the title for the developer of the CVS site.
Okay.
Does that mean Hughes Street is gone forever?
Gone forever.
But that unimproved Hughes Street, be careful, because there is a Hughes Street in Westover Heights.
Westover, yeah.
Yes.
That particular Hughes Street.
That's still there.
That's still there.
Which runs parallel to the railroad,
We're not closing that one.
Right.
Okay, is there any further discussion on that? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And at this time, I need a motion to adjourn the recessed meeting.
Excuse me, sorry, Mayor,
No problem?
not yet.
Oh,
We're gonna go back and do that ordinance abatement on Dr. MLK, but before that, do you wanna thank our guests and
yes. Thank you very much, Marshall and Kevin Dean and Jordan Brewer. We certainly appreciate you being here, and you can leave, or you please feel free to stay if you'd like.
Thank
Well,
Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank y'all very much. These are difficult times for everybody, and I
Yes.
understand that, and we really appreciate the city working with us. I also want to tell you something that ought to make you feel good about your town. CVS is probably only going to do about 35 transactions in 2021, and this is one of them. So it says a lot about, the clientele in your community and what their commitment to this town is. So I'm from Eastern North Carolina originally, and it makes me proud to do something like this near my home. So thank y'all very much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hart. We really appreciate y'all working with us as well as you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
see.
Okay, so now we need a motion to adjourn.
Nope,
No?
hang on.
You're still not
You're
through.
not gonna let me, you're not gonna let us tear down this garage on, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Oh, okay.
We have the ordinance ordering the
sorry.
abatement of the public nuisance at 700 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. This, property is owned by a mortgage company in Detroit, and the house is in good shape, but the, garage had, a problem. I think the roof deteriorated during a windstorm, and it's gotten really bad. A lot of water has gotten into the structure, and the building inspectors recommended demolishing, or if we could get somebody in there to make a repair really, really quick, but it will be tight. So we'll try to get, if you adopt the resolution the ordinance ordering us to abate it, we'll work with contractors and figure out what's the most economical solution for
And
the
that
town.
would be a lien on that particular property.
Yes. So the ordinance was in your packet, and Mayor, if the council so sees fit to adopt it, we'll get right on it.
Mayor made a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, it is discussion.
Yes, this one.
Go ahead, I have a question too, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just want, any thought on the house? I mean, did the mortgage company say anything about what they had plans to do or anything?
They have not responded to any of our communication whatsoever.
Is that normal?
Yes,
Is it?
with
Okay.
out-of-state investment companies like that.
A letter was written. or more-
Several letters.
Several letters were written, and no response.
You're not gonna get a response. It's a foreclosed piece of property, they don't really care, to be quite honest with
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So you can have your building inspector do what he needs to do. Now, We need a motion to adjourn the recessed meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Now we need to call a special meeting of the redevelopment commission to order. And the first item on that is acceptance of the bid to sell 133 East Gale Street. And Ms. Martin, I'll call on you, if you will, to tell us about that.
Sure, we went through the upset bid process. You remember the first bid received was low, and you were concerned about starting the process with the bid at $9,200, but there had been several parties interested, and we had a bidding war go on, and the upset bid process went back and forth for several times, and ultimately the person who submitted the low bid ended up submitting the highest bid that was not upset again. So his purchase price is $18,750. That's still lower than what the town paid for it when we bought it back in 2019. It appraised at $29,000. And you know, it's up to the council. I would recommend you accept that bid. I think with all the positive things that are going on that street, to have another house that will be restored and brought back to life, I think at this time is you know, a win for the town. Elizabeth, do you have thoughts? Or?
Just, I agree, and this house in particular is super significant, the Hannibal Batten Senior House. It's been on my list of worries for a while about its vacant status, so the thought that it could be restored and inhabited is just really, really positive.
It is so good to see improvements going on at 100 block
So it's
East Gale. It really is.
And I believe, if I understand it correctly, the people that have the high bid, they're doing that to live in for themselves
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's significant.
Right.
You know, we all hate to accept a bid that's less than what we paid for it, but
But they're gonna come and,
yes, and it'll be worth considerably more. And,
I believe she's going to nursing school.
And Mayor Stallings, when we first considered this, I guess it was over a month ago, this night, and my initial thoughts and comments were that we had not allowed it to run its course yet to drive the price up as high as we could, and I was uncomfortable, and I think we all were at that time. But I now know I can look in the mirror and know that we've allowed it to run its course through the upset bid process, and if there were another willing buyer to pay more, you got to think they would come forward to pay more. So I think we pushed it as far as we can push it, and the only two choices would be accept it or hold on to it, and I think we pushed it to the point where I'm satisfied.
And again, I say, when you've got someone that's gonna fix it up and remodel it to live in themselves, that's a win-win, in my personal opinion. So at this point, will there be any other discussion about it?
I move you accept the bid.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, so at this time, we will adjourn the redevelopment.
Can I ask one question? Excuse me, I just want to ask Anne Marie if we've made it, and we talked about the possibility of using some of these funds to support the Cadiz restoration. I want to see if we've made any progress toward being able to do that.
That's on my list, and I'll get that going with making sure that the town can give funds to the commission for that fundraising purpose.
And anybody else out there that's watching this, if they want to give funds to this fundraising effort today, it's a good time to open your heart and your pocketbook.
Good pitch, Sam.
Good, that's good. Is that a pitch?
That's a good pitch.
Okay, at this time, we'll move to our committee reports. And first on the menu is the Administrative Committee chaired by Councilman High.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. We've got a very short agenda tonight for our committee, but what we need to discuss is a proposal for professional services to have someone examine our Edenton Historic District guidelines. Elizabeth Bryant has been working closely with the group that is involved in these types of services, and I would just hand it over to her so that she can summarize the proposal, and then we'll have some recommendations at the end of her summary of the proposal.
Well, thank you, Councilman High. So y'all may remember that it was September of last year, I think, that we got our grant award for this. So COVID interrupted this process quite a bit, as well as just some strange occurrences. The first consultant that we suggested to you all and that you voted to enter into contract with ended up going to work for the State Historic Preservation Office and no longer could serve as our consultant. Then we thought we had another person lined up, and then COVID hit and made travel impossible. That consultant was out of state. But to wrap it up, the State Historic Preservation Office has extended the deadline for the grant, which gave us a little bit more time. And in fact, I think the consultant that we have, Heather Slane, is actually going to probably be the best one that we have ever gotten. She's wrapping up a update of the Town of Chapel Hill's Historic District Design Guidelines right now. She has excellent experience in the state, has even done a project for the Cupola House, I believe. We'll be doing most of this virtually, but I think it's going to end up being a wonderful process and project, and I'll be so glad to get it done because our last update was in 2006. So that's it.
Do we already have a pretty firm list of the types of changes that we see coming? Was that totally up to the consultant?
Sure,
I'm sorry.
And it's been a year, so I neglected to mention that, and that was original to our grant request. So there's been some updates to material standards used in additions and new construction in historic districts. There's also been the production of new materials since our last update. So 2006 was 14 years ago. And since then, there are things like pre-engineered metal roofing that come in panels that you can manipulate with hand crimping tools that are a cost savings for homeowners, but you can put them on so that they look like the traditional standing seam metal roof. That was a long way to say that would be an example of something that we need to update in our guidelines. Another example is our standards for our commercial buildings are interwoven with our residential standards, and it makes it confusing to apply for commercial building owners to figure out what applies to them versus what applies to a residential structure. And then the last update is an unfortunate one, but one we need, where we're going to have a section on disaster preparedness and recovery. After the last hurricane, particularly the city of New Bern had some interior detailing and finishes that were removed by homeowners on the advice of contractors who didn't know what the appropriate techniques were. And so original windows, doors, and woodwork were dismantled and thrown on the side of the road instead of being allowed to dry out. So the idea is that we'll have a whole section for homeowners and building owners on what to do in these scenarios. So, sorry.
Any other questions for Elizabeth?
And Mayor Stallings, what we would simply recommend is that this be put forward to full council at our next regular meeting, and that we vote upon it with the recommendation that we move forward.
Good.
And with that recommendation, and before you move on, Mr. Stallings, I mentioned this to Anne Marie today. Over the weekend, I got a call from one of our residents related to the CVS project, and he understood and appreciated Councilman Dixon's concerns about the design and asked if we had any specific design standards outside the historic district. And it's interesting, he seemed to want some guidelines outside the historic district. In fact, he was in the North Edenton neighborhood, didn't want them as stringent as a historic district, but mentioned that it might be a good idea for future projects like CVS and other projects outside the historic district that we have some design guidelines also. I think that would be helpful. I think it would be helpful to town council and give Mr. Dixon and all of us more teeth and more guidelines to go by. It would also be helpful to our developers as they come in and they know those design standards are there. And one thing that I think would help North Edenton and other parts of the community would be if things look nice. And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people in North Edenton. They would like us to come up with some policies that would make that area look nicer. And design standards outside of the historic district, I think would be very, very beneficial, and something that perhaps we can start looking into maybe in the new year. We've got a lot to tackle now, and I realize that this is separate and apart from what I just mentioned, but the citizen was very concerned about it, and I told him that I would pass it along. And I think tonight was a good example of why we could benefit perhaps from those guidelines.
So we have commercial design guidelines in the
Medical arts and highway commercial districts.
but they were adopted.
They're at least 10 years old,
Yeah.
maybe 12.
So I think it would be appropriate for us to look at having somebody from the outside, a professional, look at the guidelines and help us.
They were an in-house production the last time.
Yeah, it was a committee of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing the best we
Do you think
could.
it's time to maybe look at the expansion of the historic district too? I mean, I know that it's interesting that, you can see some now where it stops and starts. I mean, one house, the house next door is able to do things that,
I think it would be good for us to talk about that and really look at where the national district boundary
Right.
is and examine what's going on on those streets and in those neighborhoods that are not within the local district, if they're ready
to do that.
to be included in the local district.
And with that discussion, Mayor Stevens, that concludes the committee meeting for the administrative committee. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman High. And the next is our Public Works Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Miller.
Mayor, we only have one item of business. It's a change order request for a street resurfacing project, adding streets from sanitary sewer inflow and filtration project. Mayor, as you know, Hawthorne Street, Stratford Street, East 2nd Street, East 3rd Street, East King Street, South Oakland Street, and Wood Avenue have all been under repair for the past several months due to a $1 million sanitary sewer inflow and infiltration project. Now that all these work is finally completed, it's time now to add these streets along with parts of Pembroke Circle to the street repair resurfacing project list. Additional funding has been earmarked from the water and sewage reserve account to cover the cost of this additional road resurfacing. So Mayor, Public Works Committee recommends that this change order request be forwarded to the full council for a vote on the next council meeting scheduled for October 13th.
Okay, all right, thank you. And our next is the Finance Committee, that's chaired by Councilman Dixon.
So we had two things. First is a budget amendment regarding the street resurfacing capital project ordinance. Emery, you want to
That's
add
just
that?
to.
Yeah, just to fix the numbers for that. And the second is the COVID-19 CARES Act funding. Do you want to give a brief update on that?
So we're asking the council to consider some optional possible grant opportunities for our small businesses, also for residents who have been impacted by COVID. I outlined some of the terms and conditions in the report, and if you all can be thinking and give us any feedback, is that something that you want to move forward? And we have to spend that money by the end of December. I've asked the county and the Edenton Shore Partnership for feedback on, the number of grants that they awarded to small businesses. They did one to nonprofits as well, which I think closed today, so we'll get you some info on that. But I do think that we're gonna have some money that we can earmark either for small businesses that have been impacted. Nobody else seems to be doing funding for residential, for utility bills, and I think that from everything that we've learned, the state has blessed that as a program that is allowed. And, we have 115 customers that are on payment plans with us who needed help during the stay-at-home order. So just be thinking about it, give us some feedback, and then we can tailor the program that you want us to move forward with for you to take action at your meeting in October.
Just a question. Going back to road resurfacing, as far as Pembroke Circle is concerned, do you feel that they're just gonna look at that curve at the bottom, or will they include the entire Pembroke Circle itself?
I'm sorry, I was supposed to check
maybe.
with Corey today, and I did
thought
not
you were
do
gonna give me an
that.
answer on that.
But we'll get the
Of course, the main
answer.
problem is down there at the turn.
Right. And I looked at the quantities, but I could not tell how
Okay.
far that's gonna get us, but I'll check with Corey and respond back.
Okay, that's it for the finance committee.
And one other question.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when Barnhill will be starting?
We, at our pre-construction meeting, they were looking at somewhere between mid-October, end of October, but really trying to get it done this year before the cold season comes.
Do they have different crews, so they'll start in different areas, or they have one crew just for one road at a time? Do you know? People were asking me about that, I wasn't sure.
I imagine they'll just have one crew that'll do it all. I
I'm
doubt
trying to
they will.
remember how they did it the last time.
That's the way they did it last time.
Yeah,
Street
one
by
crew, one
street.
crew.
Like Hick Street took some time,
Yeah.
because they had some issues.
Anyone else have anything for the good of the council? If not, that concludes our agenda, and we are dismissed.